Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF. Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com. It's time for another episode of the Pulse School. You can find all of our episodes by going to PulseSchool.com. Today we're talking to Andrew Reid of BASF. He's a technical marketing specialist in herbicides. Andrew, how's it going?
Doing great. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great. We're going to talk today about weed control options in pulses. Of course, in pulse crops, it is challenging to get a good, solid weed control system in place. There's a lot of barriers, but the reality is we need to do what we can to set ourselves up for success. What are some of those things we can do?
Well, I think the first thing is really to talk and think about herbicide resistance. It's unfortunately the challenge that we deal with a lot of pulse crops. Our in-crop options are limited. A lot of them are group 2 herbicide based, which has been a fantastic mode of action, great group of chemistry for pulse production. The challenge is with the increase in the amount of group 2 resistance, we have to really consider, okay, what can we do to manage those potentially resistant weeds, whether you have them or not? And a lot of that really starts with your pre-burn, setting yourself up for success, getting yourself a good burn down in the spring, not just glyphosate, looking at what are your tank mix options to get a good burn down, get some residual there to kind of help manage those resistance weeds, and also bridge the gap until you really get to your in-crop application to kind of hopefully just clean up a few of those last escapes and really set yourself up for success.
Yeah, what about some of those in-crop options?
So the in-crop options, like in most of the pulse crops, especially if you think clearfield lentils or in field peas, like I mentioned, they're all group 2 based. So you've got Solo and Odyssey for use in your clearfield lentils. You can use Odyssey and Viper in your field pea crops. But unfortunately, most of what we're using is a group 2 chemistry. So it's really understanding where is the best fit for that chemistry and actually really trying to manage those weeds before you get in the sprayer. Thinking about, okay, if I potentially have some group 2 resistance here on this quarter, maybe I shouldn't be growing my lentils here. Maybe I shouldn't be growing a pulse crop there. Where am I going to be potentially more successful?
What's the data on pulse crops on early spraying? I mean, that in-crop being earlier as opposed to later. Like I know in corn, tons of research out there waiting for that last little that last little flush and then getting it all is a yield killer. What kind of research do we have in pulses?
So there's some research on it, not nearly to the same extent that we've seen in corn. There's a lot actually in soybeans, that same type of situation where if you wait too long, it's called the critical weed free period. If you wait too long and you have those weeds that are there while your crop is coming out of the ground, that actually comes with a potential yield hit just because those crop plants are trying to compete even when they're only this big popping out of the ground. The same is true for peas and lentils. So really getting that early season, that pre-burn with a bit of residual to help manage and suppress those weeds early on, let your crop get ahead, and then you're really off to the races. And that sets your in-crop application up to be more successful.
And one of the things that has sort of left us, it's part of a prior era, is being able to do things on a single pass. We're into an era now of multiple pass just being a reality.
Absolutely. And that's something that we as a company, we've embraced. We've been looking at a lot more pre-seed residual chemistries. We have been trying to look at other in-crop options, but again, those are limited. So we've actually come out with a program the last year called the Advanced Weed Control Program, and it specifically focuses in pulses, where really if you go in with a good pre-burn with a residual component, and then you follow it up with an in-crop application, and all the documentation is available on our website at agsolutions.ca, we will provide a respray support on certain key weeds as long as you followed the program. So we're really trying to promote that multiple passes, multiple modes of action, more residual chemistries, because really, like you said, we're past the days of spray and walk away. You really have to plan this out leading into the season.
Well, but on the pre-burn side, going back to the beginning, spring weather conditions can kind of be up and down, temperatures really fluctuating. We got to be paying attention, though, to the temperature when we're applying some of these products, especially in those late April, early May days.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so some of the more metabolic based herbicides like glyphosate is a perfect example. The colder it gets, the slower it works, and the more likely you're going to see an escape. One of the nice things about some of our pre-seed herbicides, heat is a great example. It's actually ironic. We branded it as heat. It's not actually that heat dependent. It's more light driven. So it's less sensitive to lower temperatures. We've actually got a lot of research that shows even under cold temperature, it still works. So it's a great spring option. But because we're always promoting it with glyphosate, we still want to make sure that growers are spraying under good spray conditions for that glyphosate to make sure they're getting the best burn down possible in the spring, because that's really what sets you up for success.
You can find more episodes of the Pulse School by going to pulseschool.com. Andrew, thanks a lot for joining us here today on the Pulse School.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean.